John Heyman of the New York Post is reporting on Bleacher Report that the New York Yankees are a team that could be interested in Silver Slugging winner Pete Alonso to play first base for them. We're going to talk about that rumor, talk about whether we believe in it or not, whether the Pete Alonso idea is a fit for the Yankees, what that would mean for Austin Wells and Ben Rice, all of that and more right here on Fireside Yankees. But before we get into anything, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. If you turn on the notification bell, you get updates on our posts when we post, whether it's on the community tab or right here with the YouTube videos, whether it's shorts or longer form content. We appreciate your continued support. Let us know what you think about signing Pete Alonso in the comment section below. And without further ado, let's get into today's video. Pete Alonso this past season finished inside the top 10 in OPS, weighted runs created plus, and home runs, as he was a run-producing machine. He finished, I think, third in doubles with 41. He finished second in RBIs. He really filled up the stat sheet throughout the 2025 season, and now that he's hitting free agency, he's doing it at the right time. Last year, he had to sign a pillow contract to give him another chance to hit free agency, and he delivered. He finished with his second-best OPS of his career, the best mark he's had since his 2019 rookie campaign, and I expect him to have more interest on the free agent market for a variety of reasons. Number one is obviously the improved production from years past. He increased his barrel percentage to over 18%. The underlying metrics look a lot better for Pete Alonso. But number two, there is no qualifying offer attached to Alonso, meaning that a team will not have to forfeit draft picks in order to sign him. This is big because I believe last year that played a role in what ended up being a pretty dead market for Alonso. It looked like the Toronto Blue Jays had interest, but ultimately the New York Mets swooped in at the final second and struck a deal with Alonso to add him to their roster. Now, when it comes to Pete Alonso and his fit with the Yankees, it's pretty easy to see from an offensive standpoint why he would make sense for any team. He's a high home run hitter. He hit 272 last year. He actually doesn't have massive swing and miss issues, so you would be able to pencil him into the middle of your lineup and not worry about his ability to perform on a big stage or perform in a level that would allow him to hit in the postseason. He's been a pretty good postseason hitter in his limited career there. He's played in 16 games. He has a 278 average, a OPS over 1,000 in that setting, so you don't have worries about him being able to handle playoff play either. He is a really darn good hitter. He is someone who immediately makes the Yankees a lot better, and from the right-handed side specifically gives the Yankees another threat in the middle of that lineup who can give them significant firepower and put them in a spot where I personally believe they'd have the best offense in Major League Baseball. But this comes with a lot of detractions that would honestly have a lot of fans understandably against the idea of signing Pete Alonso. This past season, he had a negative 5.4 BSR, which is base running runs on Fangraphs. That made him one of the least valuable base runners in baseball. He was the fourth least valuable base runner in baseball in terms of qualified hitters. He was barely ahead of guys like Rafael Devers, Alejandro Kirk, and Josh Bell. That is definitely something that's going to work against him. He had negative 9 defensive runs saved and negative 9 outs above average at first base as well. Now, this doesn't factor in how good of a scooper he is. I've seen a lot of film with him and his defense at first base. He had 29 scoops this year, 39 the year prior. Met fans talk about how his ability to scoop is something that's valued, but it also comes with a lot of other issues. He's not a rangy defender. He struggles a lot with making throws, and those are all things that are going to hurt him throughout his career and are going to make him someone who teams are going to try and move off of first base as quickly as possible. But again, I did want to note that over the last 2 years, he has by far the most scoops among first basemen in baseball. He has 68. No one comes close. Vlad is the second most at 48. So there is some value in having someone who can scoop, and at first base, when we talk about Volpe's throws or even Jazz's throws, the ability to scoop the ball is something that's definitely valuable. Now, he is opting out of his contract. He confirmed that as soon as the Mets season ended, but I do believe that the Yankees are going to be a team that would be very hesitant to give Alonso any significant money over a long period of time. He'll turn 31 in December, meaning you're going to have him, if you sign into a 5-year deal, for his age 31, 32, 33, 34, and 35 seasons. That is certainly something that could concern some people. If he's 33 years old and he's struggling to produce 2 to 3 wins above replacement of value, he suddenly becomes much less valuable to an organization. Look at his past season. We just talked about how incredible of an offensive year he had. Well, he finished with 3.6 wins above replacement on Fangraphs, and if you want to look at Baseball Reference, I know some people prefer that metric to Fangraphs' version of WAR. It was 3.4. So Alonso isn't someone who is going to produce a ton of WAR value. And if he's struggling to reach the 3 or 3.5 WAR threshold right now, or if he's barely getting there in his best years, one would have to assume that he's going to struggle to get there in his later years. And that does mean that if you're paying him $30 million a year, that you're going to be paying probably around $10 to $15 million per win above replacement. And you're doing it to create a bit of a logjam on the Yankee roster. This is where the Yankee roster kind of comes into play and where I think I might lose some people in terms of agreeing or disagreeing with me. I think we can all agree that Alonso's a good fit for the Yankees offensively and a good fit for any team offensively, but that there are concerns with his defensive game and his long-term viability because he's a right-handed, slow, slugging first baseman. Those players don't tend to age very well, but where I have even greater hesitation with signing Pete Alonso is what it means for the Yankee roster, because Austin Wells is clearly their best defensive catcher. If you look at Fangraphs and their defensive metrics, Austin Wells was the fourth most valuable defensive catcher in terms of defensive runs on Fangraphs. Fielding run value, which is generated by StatCast, but is also featured on Fangraphs as a metric that you can toggle through and find leaders for. Among catchers, Austin Wells this past season finished fifth in fielding run value with plus 11. So he is someone who's considerably better than the league average catcher defensively, and his OPS was higher than the league average catchers offensively. So there's perks to having Austin Wells as your catcher. He is a better catcher than people give him credit for, in my opinion. This past season, he finished 10th in wins above replacement at the position. The year prior, I think he finished 6th in wins above replacement at the position. So this is a player who is a back-end top 10 catcher in terms of wins above replacement. And obviously Ben Rice, who I think we can all agree is someone who needs to be part of the Yankees' short-term and long-term plans for their contention and for their long-term viability in their championship window. He put up a really good offensive year, but he isn't a great defensive catcher. He struggles to frame, he struggles to throw guys out, and he struggles to block. Those are things that Ben Rice is going to need to improve before I can feel comfortable saying he should start at catcher. That is something that the Yankees are also very aware of. I believe if the Yankees came out and said, we 100% believe Ben Rice could start at catcher for the majority of games and we would be good defensively, if that was something that they believed internally and then expressed externally, I would buy into the idea that the team can add a first baseman and get better, trade Wells for some player who can make an impact on some other part of your roster. But ultimately, I'm not convinced that that's something that can happen because Ben Rice is going to have to make some massive leaps to become a viable big league catcher. Now, I don't think he has to be an elite defensive catcher. I just believe he has to be a pretty good one. If he provided +4, +5 fielding run value and was an above average defender at the position, his offensive value is going to more than carry the load for him being a very valuable player at the position. If you want to look at some prominent big hitting catchers, you have guys like Will Smith, who has traditionally been a average to below average catcher throughout his career. This year he finished with -8 fielding run value, and he was still one of the 3 most valuable catchers in all of baseball. If you want to look at some other players, I know that Cal Raleigh has been a really good defender in the past, but this past season, he had 7 fielding run value. He was a really good defender, but not an elite defender. He was a good defender at the position. I believe in terms of fielding run value, he finished 10th among catchers, and this is a volume-based stat as well. The more volume you accumulate, the more fielding run value you will have. So for part-time players like a Sean Murphy, who only had 633 innings but had 6 fielding run value, I would view him as a better defensive catcher than Cal Raleigh. But as we mentioned before, being a good defender, a quality defender, and being a great hitter is more valuable than the inverse, I believe. And that would be being like an Austin Wells. Austin Wells is a solid hitter for the position who's a really good defender. I think that's less valuable than what Ben Rice would be if he was a good defensive catcher. But that if is something I'm not sure I can bank on for the 2026 season. I'm not sure I want to bank on if Ben Rice gets a lot better defensively, and if Pete Alonso doesn't take a massive step back defensively or in his age 31 season offensively, you could very easily find yourself in a scenario where you're without a quality defensive catcher. You're below average there defensively. You're below average at first base defensively. If Jason's playing left field, you're below average in left field defensively. You could be below average in those 3 positions and maybe even center field, and you find yourself as a poor defensive team who isn't slugging enough to overcome the fact that they're a poor defensive team. They're a slow baseball team. They're not the kind of baseball team that is good enough offensively to overcome their defensive issues, and it reflects on the pitching staff. That's not something I'm necessarily in love with. Now, that is, again, a worst case scenario, a not median outcome, but if Ben Rice is someone who can become a quality defensive catcher, then Pete Alonso makes a lot of sense, because then you can put Pete Alonso at first. Your defense at catcher will still be good. Your defense in center field and left field, they could be question marks, but if you're good at catcher, I believe that you're going to be in a good spot. And if Alonso hits the way he did this past season, the Yankees will have a really good lineup. And again, depending on what you get back for Austin Wells, you could have either A, better bullpen, B, better rotation, or C, maybe you add a position player to play the outfield who helps you tremendously. Now, I am curious to see how the Yankees approach this winter. I ultimately believe that Pete Alonso is not someone who the New York Yankees will sign. I think he's better suited for another team. Maybe the Boston Red Sox will be more interested, but time will tell. Will he go back to the Mets? Will the guy who now has their home run record for their careers as a Met, will he return to New York as a Met, or will the Yankees make what I consider an unlikely move to sign him and bolster their offense? Time will tell. I'd love to get your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you feel like after this video, you're someone who's more for Alonso or more against Alonso? We'd love to get your thoughts on Pete Alonso as a free agent, what you would offer him in the comment section below. Make sure you guys, again, like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on that notification bell to get updates on our next uploads, and check out our social media channels on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, all under the handle at Fireside Yankees. Links to everything will be in the description below. I'm Ryan Garcia. This is Fireside Yankees. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.
Perfect.